Hello and welcome to Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film Samsara, directed by Lois Patiño. Wow, this film was an experience. I would say it's unique. I've never taken LSD, but I imagine that what I experienced would be similar to an LSD trip. I'm not sure if it's possible to give spoilers in this film, but I am going to talk about what happens. However, I'm not sure that the actual events of the film are that critical. It's the experience that really matters. The film really takes you on a sensory journey. There is a very gentle narrative of an old woman dying and passing through a kind of intermediate stage through to the afterlife. The film really takes you on a sensory journey. There is a very gentle narrative about an old woman dying and passing through a kind of intermediate stage through to the afterlife, through to her rebirth as a goat. However, this is not a film in the conventional sense. I would definitely say that it's as much an artwork as a feature film. I'm not saying that it should be in a gallery. In fact, it works really well in the cinema, and I appreciate how it seems to be expanding what cinema can do. Cinema is an audiovisual medium, but somehow this film manages to seem more expansive than that. The immersive experience feels like it's working at a level which goes way beyond the audio and visual inputs. I guess many films do this to some extent, but this one takes it to a whole new level. The film is very tactile, and I think the soundscape, which is definitely critical to the film working, is meticulously designed. I think that this film wouldn't appeal to everyone. I did find the first hour, that's based in Laos, very slow. I think Patiño used amateur actors, and at times the acting is very wooden. But I think this is deliberate in a kind of Bressonian way. So you don't engage with the dialogue or the personalities in the film. But at the end of the film, I did realise that this first hour is laying a lot of the groundwork for the experience that's to come later. I wasn't especially engaged with it on first watching, but after seeing the whole film, I'm much more engaged with that first section now, if that makes sense. I love the little connections there are between the two main sections of the film. I think actually it is an incredibly spiritual film. I'm quite spiritual, so I'm open to what it presents. The film has a strong Buddhist thread throughout, but in the second part of the film we're amongst Muslims rather than Buddhists, so it doesn't feel like it's peddling one particular religious view. I don't think this film is religious actually, but I do think it's spiritual, if that's a distinction that makes sense to you. The most memorable section of the film, of course, is the 15-minute sequence where the old woman dies and she travels through some form of afterlife until she's reborn as a goat in Zanzibar. We're invited to close our eyes and go on the journey with her. I must say that I've never quite had an experience like this before. There are flashes, shapes, colours. It's an incredible mix. And I saw so much. And the audio is so important here. I think this definitely influenced what I saw. There's a bit where we hear buzzing insects, probably bees, and I saw a swarm of bees leaving a trail behind them, making this complex spherical shape really extraordinary. The second part of the film is perhaps even slower and aimless than the first part. However, by this point, my senses were all so awake that every little thing registered. It's a really interesting experience. Very little is happening, yet it felt like my senses were so stimulated. Knowing that the old woman was the goat made me feel really protective of her. Whenever the goat was slightly mishandled, I felt it. Now, I don't have any basis on which to believe that reincarnation is real, but while watching the film, this was definitely the old woman. I really liked that. It also made me think a lot about eating meat. I'm not vegan or vegetarian, but I actually would quite like to be. Just imagine if it's true that all animals are actually reincarnated humans. The second half had broader themes with discussions on the economics of the seaweed industry, labour issues and environmental concerns around water. I'm not really sure that this fitted with the first part of the film, but I don't think that it especially mattered what was discussed in terms of the experience. Almost the banality of some of the conversation emphasised the point that something bigger than the script was happening in this film. One thing I wasn't sure about, it's explained to us that we can open our eyes when it goes silent for the 15-minute journey experience. I had a problem here because it never went completely silent, and I took that instruction literally, so I think I missed 5 to 10 minutes when we were actually supposed to be looking again. However, I feel that this has to be a deliberate ambiguity. It perhaps doesn't really matter when you rejoin the film. There are actually things that still give something if your eyes are still closed when they should be open. A big orange curtain blows up and takes a large proportion of the screen. It's definitely done in a way that works if your eyes are still closed. Of course, if your eyes are still closed, it does matter because you don't see the translation of the dialogue. I saw it in the cinema. I sat quite far back to see how well it would work, and it worked really well. I also watched parts of it again on the Curzon home streaming service. It actually worked really well watching it in front of a computer screen with headphones. It is a 27-inch Apple Studio display. I didn't try it on a laptop, but I think it would work also. The key thing is that it needs to be really dark. And I think the better the sound, the better it will work. So headphones are probably best if you're watching it on a TV or computer screen. I actually also was really curious to watch it with my eyes open. And it was interesting enough that I watched the whole 15 minutes. Overall, I think that Samsara is unique filmmaking. It's a multisensory and immersive experience that definitely pushes cinema in a new direction. It's not for everyone, and I think the best way to approach it is to imagine you're going into a meditation class more than a film. However, I had a fantastic, mind-blowing experience with this film, and I would definitely highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.